Savvy Business Radio, drawing out the best from our guests with our host, Christina Nichman.
Our guest today is George Benoliel of NestApple. NestApple was born on the principle that technology greatly diminishes the role of full-service real estate broker firms by making it easy to search for homes. If you're looking to buy, sell, or rent, find out more about NestApple at nestapple.com. Hi, George. Welcome to Savvy Business Radio. How are you today?
I'm good, Christina. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm grateful to have you out here today. You are doing wonderful work with your business, helping people buy, sell, and rent apartments, but in a conscious way where everyone benefits. You are able to give cash at the close for people who use your service. It's a really fascinating service, a real estate brokerage firm. Before we go to sharing those wonderful details, share with the audience a little bit about your backstory and your business story and what brought you to real estate.
So I'm not a real estate person. I come from France and I've been living for 15 years in the US, and my wife is a lawyer. What we found very inefficient in real estate is that when you compare every asset class in the economy, the fees that people pay, look at bank fees, look at plane tickets, look at hotels, rental car, anything you pay, the fees have been reduced about 99% over the last 30 years. The only type of fees that got unchanged in the US are real estate fees. And when we looked at it, we thought, wow, that's weird, because 30 years ago, real estate broker had a real expertise. They were organizing meetings over pagers. They were sending fax to each other with the information. Right now, everything is on the internet. So you have shows on TV. You can look up for an apartment to buy, sell, or rent on Zillow, Trulia, Street Easy. So we were just scratching our head and thought there's no reason why in such a transparent market that real estate is, the fees remain so high. In France, in Australia, in Germany, anywhere in Europe, the fees are about 2% for a sale. In the US, it's approximately 5 to 6.
Wow.
So the US is the only country in the world where the real estate fees going to the pocket of the real estate brokers is 5 to 6. So we saw an opportunity to disrupt this market. And the way we do it is essentially by giving cash back to people. So you could say, why don't you charge less? We essentially charge less, but we charge the full amount. And with the approval from the Department of Justice, Attorney General, and IRS, we give that amount back to people at closing.
Wow.
It's essentially a way to disrupt the market by telling clients in where we operate, it's not normal to pay 5 or 6%. And if brokers are telling you that's the way it is, no, this is not the way it is. Our job is to provide the same service that the brokers are doing. So we are licensed brokers, we are incorporated, and we are extending the number of states where we operate. But at every closing, whatever we make, we keep only 1/3, and we give 2/3 back to the client. And from our third, we will even make a donation to a local charity.
Wow. And so it goes to say that, in essence, are the people who join NestApple, are they kind of being their own real estate agent?
So essentially, no. We will do everything for them. They are not their own real estate agent, but a lot of them have been through the process once. And they were pretty shocked that their real estate broker at the time got paid $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 for doing very little, especially because nowadays, when people tell me about this house, a question that I ask systematically to them is, how did you find it? And they tell me, oh, I found it on the internet and I sent it to my realtor to organize the showing. We think that a realtor should not get paid $50,000 for it. We will do everything from the negotiation, introducing them to mortgage brokers, attorney, appraisal, all the way to the closing. We're based in New York, so we will do all of the co-op boards, which is a very unique part of the process.
Yes.
We will do everything else, and we compete with the big guys, The reason why we give them the money back is because a typical realtor will share the money 50-50 with their company. So if you have heard of companies such as Compass or Douglas Elliman, Corcoran, and everything, the realtor typically has to do 50-50. We, from the commission structure, we keep 1/3 and we give the 2/3 back. But when in average, in the East Coast, a realtor does in average 1 deal a year. It's our first year of operation. We did 50 this year and hopefully 200 next year. So we have an exponential growth. And even if we charge a little bit less, we don't send those postcards in people's mails. We don't have offices on Fifth Avenue. We run very lean in terms of cost, and this is the reason why our cost structure is much lower.
This is interesting to me, George, and this is probably why it's able for you guys to do that at such a minimal cost and be profitable at the same time, because we can do things digitally in this arena in real estate and in so many other places, thanks to the digital market here, the digital online world. It allows us the opportunity to not have to have a brick and mortar, and I think that's probably why things were so costly before. Part of the reason is that having to have the staff and the brick and mortar and pay the rent. That's all cut now. We don't need that.
Yeah. Especially for a real estate broker. Real estate brokers should be in meeting appointments with clients, seeing properties. It makes absolutely no sense for a real estate firm to pay retail rent on Fifth Avenue in Connecticut, in the Hamptons. This increases their cost structure, and this is why we're getting so many phone calls. They don't need those expensive copy machines. They don't need those assistants. The lower you go to have your cost structure, the more you can actually add the client. Another reason also why we are competitive. Think about this. A broker does in average 1 transaction a year. When you're in real estate, the most of your time is actually to spend convincing customers to buy, sell, or rent. It's not to execute transactions. Yes. So most of the brokers are calling their friends and family, are calling you at night. Oh, I heard your neighbor is selling. I'm an expert in your neighborhood. Can I do a free evaluation of your apartment? We don't do all that because we receive all of the phone calls and we focus on the execution of the deals. So now in New York and Connecticut, where we operate now, we are experts in certain buildings. We have the financials. We know the lawyers, the mortgage brokers. We don't spend our time actually pitching people, and all of our strategy is online.
Wow. Well, this is fascinating, and it also allows people to be more educated, too. I found it interesting that you mentioned that a lot of folks will call their real estate agent and say, hey, I saw this house. Can you show it to me? And then basically they're getting on the phone and making the deal. But, I mean, honestly, you could call them yourself, can't you? Or do you need to be in the real estate industry in order to make those invites?
So
yeah, tell me.
You don't need a broker to buy, to sell, or to rent. You can buy an apartment on your own, sell an apartment on your own. A buyer and a seller can trade directly. I still think that a real estate broker is useful in certain cases, like to stage an apartment, to negotiate, there's some expertise to have, but this does not justify $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 fee. If you tell me this is a 5K job, 10K job, 15K job, probably that seems fair.
Yeah, totally.
In New York, the average deal I'm talking about the five boroughs is approximately 1.1 million. So if you make it 3% on each side, meaning the two brokers are sharing $66,000, it's a lot out of the pocket of the buyer and the seller.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Now, I also see that you also help with renters. It's not just buying and selling houses. You help with the rentals, correct?
That is absolutely correct. So for renters, it's actually even the real estate market is actually broken. And I'm going to explain to you why.
Interesting.
New York is I would say the East Coast is the only city in the world where the tenant pays a fee. Okay, so think about Europe, Australia, even on the West Coast. The the fees are always paid by the landlord, never by the tenant. And in New York, people tell tenants you have to pay the broker fee. So we've been actually changing things and telling people that this is not normal, and the landlord needs to pay the broker fee. So what we are doing, we are representing tenants, and we are getting paid by the landlord. So the way it works, let's say if a tenant is looking for a $3,000 one bedroom in Soho, we will get paid by the land. Not only we will not charge the tenant, but we will charge the landlord a month of rent. So it's called OP, owner pays. We'll get paid the $3,000, give back 2/3 to the tenant, and keep 1/3. So in those scenarios as well, we are cash back mechanism, taking the money from the landlord and giving back to the tenants.
That's amazing. Is there any minimums that you work with regards to renting?
For renting, there is no minimum. I think the minimum is really a place in New York. I think the smallest deal we had for rental was $2,000. The maximum we did was like $12,000. Wow. And for sales, the minimum was $240 and the maximum was $4 million. So it's really all over the place. For us, a deal is a deal.
Wow, I love that. 200,000 in New York. Where was that located?
That's like a one. We did 135K a house in the Catskills, and 200,000 was that's the price of a one bedroom in the Bronx.
Ah,
we
got
did a few
it.
of those.
That's wonderful. Well, it's great to know that this exists. How does someone get involved in this? Say they're in New York and the surrounding areas and they want to buy, sell, or rent. How do they get started? Now, we're going to start from, let's say you're the person who wants to be the landlord. How do you get started with that? And then we'll talk about the buyer. So, yeah.
What do you mean?
Well, you're a landlord. Do they come on the site, or are you working directly only with the consumer first?
So we are in touch with both sides. For landlords, the way it works in New York, you have a lot of big management companies. So we are plugged in with a lot of the large management companies. If you are plugged in with, let's say, the top 20 management companies, you have access to an inventory of probably over 25,000 apartments. If you look at Seton Park or Peter Cooper Village, just this management company has 12,000 apartments that they manage. So if we are in bed with them already, it's people going and renting on a daily basis. We get the money from them and we give back to tenants. People really call us the Robin Hood of real estate in New York because we get the money back to people and we give it back to tenants.
That's great.
Every deal, we ask the client from what is left for us. We ask the client to pick a charity, and we give 10% of what we actually make to that charity. And if they tell us that they don't care, we give to the South Bronx Educational Foundation.
Yeah. Why did you choose in particular the South Bronx Educational Foundation?
That's actually an interesting anecdote. When we started the company, my wife and I wanted to give money back to the community. We think that any corporation needs to make a change in where they operate, and we started to look for a charity to give money to. And when I started calling a few, I was actually surprised by their answer. A lot of charities told me, no, if you want to give us money, you have to commit to a minimum of like $5,000 a year, $10,000 a year. Like, are you kidding me? I'm calling you to give you money and you want me to commit to pledge a minimum? That doesn't make sense. And after 3 or 4 phone calls, I was recommended or introduced to this charity. And one of the founder told me, George, you create a new company. Whatever you want to give us, fine. Even if it's $1 every year, we will take it. And from there, we've been giving them thousands of dollars, and I guess it has worked out for them. They do tutoring of poor children in the Bronx.
That's awesome. That's weird to me. Do you know why that is, that they would have a minimum, or is it something that regarding taxes or something? What is that about?
I think it's more, they don't want us to use, we mentioned their name on the website, I guess they don't want us to use their name or their logo for the sake of saying that we do something good for charity. So for this reason, they wanted a minimum. I'm not going to cite any names, but I called a few, and they would not allow me to give them money unless I commit for a certain amount every year.
That's nutters. Well, I'm glad you found a reputable charity that doesn't care about that. It cares about the giving, and that's all you're giving as much as you can. And that's great. And then, of course, I love the fact that the consumer can choose any charity that they're passionate about to give at the back end. That's totally awesome. And what really jives me, I live in New York here. We talked before the interview, and how many times I got this wonderful apartment here, and we were totally blessed. We did not expect it. It's a studio. But we got the studio here, I think, for $566. But because it was so inexpensive, the realtor charges 4 months because they're like, hey, you're getting a steal, so we want $2,400. And we paid that in order to get this amazing apartment, which now being here 12 years, I think we pay $800, which is still amazing. Yep. But, I think to myself when I hear my other friends who pay $5,000, $6,000, whatever in brokerage fees and such, just because they want to get that apartment in New York. So it's great to hear that you're cutting that bull that shouldn't even exist.
I mean, some people still pay that because brokers tell them this is the way it is, or sometimes the corporations are paying that in the case of relocation.
Yeah.
But we are here to tell people that when they hear this is the way it is, it should not be the case.
Yeah.
For example, I'm telling everybody one of the biggest lie in real estate is when you buy an apartment and people tell you, don't worry about the broker fees because it's the seller paying the broker fees. That's just not true. Whoever cuts the check, it's less money for the seller, it's less money for the buyer. Whenever you have a broker taking 6% of a deal, it's irrelevant who pays for the broker fee. The seller will want a number net to him. So real estate is full of I would say, little lies. And if people try to tell you this is the way it is, maybe this is because we don't have a real estate background. We are just educating people.
Yeah.
We did a website with a blog to explain to people. We did some small videos, and we are just converting people and explaining the way it is.
It's interesting. A lot of things in life we are told this is just the way it is. Well, maybe it's the way things have been done, but maybe it's the way things should not be done in the future. Yeah.
Yeah. We found if you go on Google, if you Google real estate cashback real estate mechanism, you're going to find the first link is going to be a link from the previous Attorney General. His name is Schlederman, who did a letter complaining that the real estate are too high and really recommending to the broker community to give cash back to people.
Wow.
There's not a single broker who did it. We are the first one.
Wow.
We are really following that rule. So even the authorities are aware that those fees are too much, and I predict that they are going to decline because they can't stay that high. And one of the advice that I would give to all of the listeners is, if people tell you, if you see something that doesn't make sense, try to be active about it. Create a website yourself, launch it, incorporate your corporation, create a banking account, and from one thing to the next, you are going to learn more about digital marketing, how to reach out to those people. And if your product is good enough and you have a strong value proposal, you don't need to be an expert in search engine optimization. People will find you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. And because, look here, you found a problem in the market and you found a solution. And the biggest solution, for one, is educating people that it doesn't have to be the way it is. When you hear, well, this has to be this way because it's always been this way. Well, maybe it doesn't. And it starts with being aware as a consumer and that there are alternatives. And you are a wonderful alternative. NestApple.com. That's where they can find out more about you, correct?
Absolutely. And we are actually looking for business developers. We're actually looking to recruit. This is our now second year of operation. If you are in digital marketing, if you are a growth marketer, if you have a particular background in real estate, we're looking for people to grow the company and to be based on the tri-state area. So not only if you're looking for a place, but if you're looking for a job, you can also reach out to us.
That's great. So they can reach out to you. What is the process when they're getting started today, let's say renting an apartment? How do they get started on your website? What are the first steps?
So first of all, we are redoing the website, but on the current version, there is a listings page. On the listing page, you have approximately 25,000 apartments. Those apartments are apartments that the brokers have access to, meaning not only Street Easy, because Street Easy is only for consumers, or Zillow or Trulia are for consumers, but we put on the website the whole inventory of apartments available, including apartments available only to other brokers, but not to consumers. So the first step, I would say, is to put their criteria of apartments, what they are looking for, etc., create a profile, and they are going to request us to have them visit those apartments. It will be all automatic.
Wow.
When they request that, their profile will be loaded, and we can send them updates about similar apartments or other suggestions.
Wow, this is fabulous. Well, George, I just have to thank you for one, you and your wife doing this wonderful service for New Yorkers, and hopefully it'll branch out to other people around the country to get the idea that there's a different way to do things. I mean, here in as you mentioned, this is where we have the brokerage fees. But this is great. I've never heard of cash back anywhere in the rest of the country either. But thank you so much, George, for the wonderful work you're doing at NestApple.com. Everyone go there. Check it out if you want to buy, sell, or rent. And thank you so much, George, for coming to share your great wisdom today on Savvy Business Radio.
Thank you, and Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to everybody.
Yay! Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Bye.
Savvy Business Radio broadcasts worldwide via a large podcast network, celebrating business owners, entrepreneurs, influencers, and successful individuals. Find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or how to become a guest. Call 732-474-7375 or email Christina at SavvyBusinessRadio.com.